This isn't just a fight night, this is a betting goldmine. In this video, I'm gonna go through the entire card with you, giving you my picks, predictions, and betting breakdown for every single fight on the card. This week, the UFC is back in the Meta Apex, the newly named Meta Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. And boy, do we have a great main event matchup that I'm happy to talk to you about this week. We have Marriault Bautista, the pace king, the boy who was built and born for 5-round fights, finally in a 5-round matchup against Vinicius Oliveira, someone who is on a crazy win streak ever since he touched UFC canvas. In the co-main event, we have Amir Albazi taking on Kyoji Horiguchi, a second-time UFC newcomer who is coming fresh off a massive win over the pre-streaking Tagir Ulanbekov. People are speaking about Horiguchi as a future title contender in a flyweight division. Very excited to see that one. We have MIchal Oleksiejczuk, not to be mixed up with his brother Cezary Oleksiejczuk, who himself, both of them, are on very, very great win streaks, and he's taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. That fight is definitely going to be a banger. I mean, someone is going to sleep, and I think I know who it is, so very excited to tell you about that. We also have Matsumoto taking on Farid Basharat, two guys that could be ranked in the top 15 today, but they're ranked just about in the top 30, which tells you all you need to know about the UFC bantamweight division. Jailton Almeida is making his return against Rizvan Kuniev in a great high level heavyweight matchup. Boys, welcome to the UFC Bautista versus Oliveira edition of the lucrative MMA betting show. Run the intro and I'm going to give you the picks on the other side. So welcome back, boys. Here we are again, once more into the fray. Very happy to see you here. This is being recorded before the Daniil Hooker, Benoit Saint Denis, and Alexander Volkanovski, Diego Lopez card, so I can't say how I done on that card. For the first card of the year, we pretty much broke even, minus 0.45%, so pretty much a break-even week. It could have been a massive week for us. Unfortunately, a few of our guys didn't get it done. We was very unlucky on some bets as well. Krylov decision at plus 1,000, I believe, very much deserved to cash, lost with 3 seconds to go. But it is what it is, boys. Every single week we come here and we put it on the line, you know, to try and make our bankrolls great again. That's what I've been doing since I started this game. You know, I've been betting consistently on MMA, which means every single week for about 10 years now. And I've been doing it full-time professionally for about 5 years. What that means is that throughout those 5 years and 10 years, there's going to be a lot of bad weeks, boys, you know, but I don't do this for any content or clout. I do this professionally for a living. I make my income from it. And then I started to make content around me making my living from it, you know, so I'm a little bit different than a lot of picks, prediction guys out there that's just speaking factual, right? And one thing I want to say to you boys is that never judge yourself off one event or off 1 week or even off 1 month or even off 1 year. I mean, I've been in this game for 10 years, you know, so there's going to be lots of bad periods. The only thing you can do is maintain a right mindset, emotional control, and hopefully, if you have good predictions and you understand sports betting and you know what plus EV value betting is, if you can also mix that with the emotional control, which 99.7% of sports bettors do not do, that's why 99.7% of sports bettors lose, then you will win money long-term regardless of short-term results. So I'm hoping that the short-term result of Diego Lopez against Alexander Volkanovski was a banger. I'm hoping we had a massive card. We usually do. But even if not, we're back in front of your screens again, and we're looking to do bigger things this week. So let's get into the very first fight of the evening, boys. Or the last fight, but the first fight that I'm breaking down, which is the main event. In the main event, we have Marriault Bautista taking on Vinicius Oliveira. Marriault Bautista coming into this fight with a record of 16 wins, only 3 losses. Vinicius Oliveira, similar record at 23 wins, again with only 3 losses. The odds makers do not care about the win-loss streak, though, because Marriault Bautista is currently a minus 185 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Vinicius Oliveira coming back at plus 160 odds. What an amazing fight. You know, it's kind of crazy to me that both of these guys are not ranked in the top 10. We have Marriault Bautista barely creeping in at 8, and then we have Vinicius Oliveira just sneaking outside at number 11. And I'm not here to say that's incorrect. The reason I say it's crazy is just because these guys are so high-level fighters. You can put them in almost any other division. same weight. And I know that's not a real conversation to have. Of course, Mario Bautista couldn't fight a heavyweight, wouldn't have the pace if he was a heavyweight, etc., etc. But you get what I'm trying to say. Any other division, skill for skill, they probably would be in the top 10. Some of them, like Mario, would probably be in the top 5 of a lot of divisions, right? So for them to not even be both in the top 10, for them to be 8 and 11, just shows you the depth of the bantamweight division. And this is going to be a great fight. That speaks to this fight because we got the 11 ranked fighter against the 8th ranked fighter. And they're basically both battling for top 10 position because you would assume, right, if all things are equal, then whoever wins is going to take the place of the other. If that's Oliveira, he's going to go from 11 to 8th, he should take the place of Mario Bautista. Bautista maybe gets kicked out of the top 10. If Mario Bautista wins, maybe he's just fighting for his place. Sometimes they move him up 1 or 2 spots if he's got a big win, but for the most part, he's just fighting for his place there. That doesn't mean he's going to come in unprepared or unprofessional. Mario Bautista looks to be in amazing shape all over his social media accounts, and he always is in shape, so I'm not surprised at that. Boys, this is such an intriguing fight to me. I am very much more inclined to lean to Mario Bautista if he's fighting in a 5-round fight. Mario Bautista is a 5-round fighter. Let me tell you that now, boys. And something that I want you to know is that if Mario Bautista or if another fighter had been scheduled for a 3-round matchup, my breakdown could be completely different. 5 rounds changes a lot, boys. 5 rounds changes everything. Cyril Gane had beat Francis Ngannou in a 3-round fight. It just happened to be 5 rounds, and so he lost. We see this time and time again where, fighters are doing well early, but then they slow down. Someone who definitely slows down is Vinicius Oliveira. Now, I've gone back and watched basically all of his fights in the UFC to see his gas tank and how it works. And I still don't know whether this guy is a functional gasser or someone who will actually fade in the championship rounds. What I mean by functional gasser, this is a term you hear in the MMA betting scene. And what it basically means is someone who does gas out, but they can still function to a high degree of their game, maybe 80% of their game. Someone like Dricus du Plessis. It's not that Dricus du Plessis doesn't get tired. He does get tired, right? He just looks awkward. Even Paddy Pimblett, Justin Gaethje, these guys were very tired a couple of weeks ago, but both of them were still performing at a decent level. Even in the 4th and 5th rounds, they were both tagging each other, landing big shots, wobbling each other on both sides. So I feel like Vinicius Oliveira does fit that bill there. He is a functional gasser, but at the end of the day, the gasser word is still in there. He still does get tired. Someone who basically doesn't get tired? Mario Bautista. Now, look, if you want to come at me on a technical level, every single human on the planet gets tired, right? Some people, you just don't see it because they get a lot less tired. And someone like that is Mario Bautista. Mario Bautista, one of the best pace fighters in a division's history, potentially. This guy will never stop throwing volume. This guy will never stop walking forward. This guy will never stop throwing strikes, grappling, wrestling, basically winning moments, winning minutes, and filling the dead space in the octagon, right? If you are watching a Mario Bautista fight, there's not going to be a minute that passes where he hasn't thrown something, he isn't setting something up, he hasn't entered into an exchange. Like Mario Bautista is not that guy. Vinicius Oliveira, on the other hand, is that guy. Now, look, his volume is pretty decent, but there are like 30-second minute that pass by where he doesn't throw anything, throws maybe a jab. He's getting his breath back, right? He's trying to become that functional gasser because he doesn't want to gas completely. Mario Bautista can go all day here. Vinicius Oliveira hasn't ever death gassed, in my opinion. Like, he's looked tired in some of these fights. The Said Nurmagomedov fight, he was extremely tired. The only reason he didn't fully gas out there is because his opponent, Said, was even more tired than him. Now, we have to make a point and say that Vinicius Oliveira is making these guys gas, just as he is gassing himself. He's making these guys gas. So I don't just want to say that he's got lucky because all of his opponents have also gassed. There's a reason for that. It's because he's putting the pace on them. He's putting the pressure on them. He's extremely aggressive, does not let off the gas, to be honest, until he gets tired and then he has to take a bit of a break. He doesn't let off the gas in those early rounds, and that really takes a toll on his opponents, both physically but also mentally. And this is a big point that I want to make, boys. The mental aspect of cardio is something that is rarely spoken about. But cardio is just as much about the mental and the spiritual side as it is about the physical side, right? What I mean by that is you could be dead tired, have nothing left to give, but you see your opponent getting more tired than you. You see your opponent wilting because you've made them wilt or they've just gassed out, right? This is what Vinicius Oliveira sees all the time. Even though he's tired, he sees his opponents being tired because of the pace and pressure he puts on. What that does to a man is give him an extra spruce of life. You know, it rejuvenates him. So we have seen that Vinicius Oliveira has been tired in these fights, like the Said Nurmagomedov fight that I referenced earlier. But because his opponent is even more tired than him, it gives him that extra 10% to continue his route. It gives him that extra 10% to keep on putting the pace and pressure on. And this is something that needs to be spoken about a little bit more in MMA betting. Now, I have to be honest with you. I don't think Vinicius Oliveira is going to do that to Mario Bautista here. I just can't see a world where Mario Bautista is really tired and just gassing out. I just can't see it, boys. I've never seen it before. I don't think I'll ever see it in the future. So I don't think I'll see it in this fight, especially against someone who does get tired. You know, if anyone was going to make Mario tired, it'll probably be Merab. And even then, he's probably still going to be pushing in the 4th and 5th rounds, in my opinion, right? But Vinicius is not a Merab. He's very dangerous, right? And he can hurt you early. And yes, he can make you gas out with forward pressure, but not to Mario, you know, not to Mario. Does that mean he can't win a fight without Mario gassing out? No. First of all, he could bank a KO, right? For sure. Mario has been hurt in the UFC. He has been tagged. Vinicius Oliveira definitely can hurt you. Cue the flying knee against Bernardo Sapage. You know, he can hurt you. Cue the shots against Ricky Simone. And to give him some credit, in that Ricky Simone fight in round 3, he's the one that looks to have more gas than Ricky Simone. And Ricky Simone is a pace guy himself. Go back and look at his fight with Mario. Mario outpaced him there, but Ricky definitely kept up more than he did against Vinicius Oliveira. You know, in that 3rd round, Vinicius Oliveira is defending the takedowns, taking down Ricky Simone himself, which is kind of crazy in round 3 against a wrestler like Ricky, and so comfortable in there in round 3 when he should be gassed. He's doing Rabonas. If you know what the Rabona is, boys, I'm going to put it on the screen right now. It's a football technique. The guy is throwing Rabonas, you know, and landing them coupled with an uppercut, left high kick combination. Like, it's absolutely crazy what Vinicius Oliveira is doing in round 3. So it's not like every single fight he gasses, and he does look good in round 3 at times even. I just feel like if the fight does get late, I think Mario's going to start to take over. I expect Vinicius Oliveira to come out here and actually win the early round. Or 2, you know, he may even win 2 rounds. Now, it's hard to take 2 rounds off Mario Bautista for the best of guys, to be honest. Like, it wasn't easy for Umar to do it. Umar had to use all of his skill set in full to do that and still got hurt kind of badly 2 times in that fight and still won 30-27. Just shows you the level that Umar is on, you know, but he's going to probably be champion one day. So that's no knock on Mario Bautista. Outside of that, he's been almost flawless, boys, you know. And like I said, it's not going to be easy to take rounds off him, though I do expect Vinicius to get some rounds here. Boys, I'm looking at this fight and saying, in my opinion, Vinicius Oliveira is probably finish or bust. You know, like it's not impossible for him to win round 1, round 2 and dog out round 4, you know, and grit a split decision, close decision. It's not impossible. I think it's unlikely. I think that if the fight goes to decision, you have to be picking Mario Bautista more often than not, because I think he's just going to win the 4th and 5th round at a big high, you know, at a high clip. I personally think that. But Vinicius could get the first 3. He could get 1, 2, and 4, as I said. The main path to victory for Vinicius, in my opinion, is going to be that finish. Is going to be that knockout, or maybe even that submission. Most likely that knockout. I think Mario Bautista is very, very high level at jiu-jitsu. I don't think he's getting finished by Vinicius at all, to be honest. At least on the ground, right? Knockout is probably his path to victory here. The issue is he's not iron durable himself. You know, he's been knocked out brutally on the regional scene. And how is his finishing instincts? Like, are we over or underrating them? I kind of feel like he might be a better finisher than we're used to seeing in the UFC. He did get that flying knee knockout over Bernardo Sapage after getting grappled in that fight quite heavily in round 3. That was, 30 seconds away from going to decision. His next fight went to decision, his next fight went to decision, and his next fight went to decision. They're against good fighters, but you would think he would be able to finish someone like Kyler Phillips. To be honest, Kyler Phillips is extremely durable, even though he gasses out after 4 minutes. So I could see, like, I think Vinicius is going to get some finishes in the UFC before it's all said and done. Let's put it that way. You know, I think that his last 3 fights that have gone to a decision are kind of obscuring his danger factor, because he is really dangerous. And almost all of his fights ended inside the distance before he ended up fighting in the UFC, stepping up that upper level. And we know it's very hard to finish fighters at that upper echelon of the division, like Said Nurmagomedov, Kyler Phillips, etc., etc. I just don't think he's going to get a finish against someone like Mario Bautista, because Mario Bautista probably the best fighter he's ever fought in the UFC, right? Or to be honest, probably the best fighter in his entire career that he's ever fought. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this fight and calling Mario Bautista via decision. This guy is a decision machine. Mario Bautista rarely gets a finish unless he's just completely outmatching his opponent. But let's look at his record for a second, boys. I mean, let's look at who he has been fighting. We've got Umar Nurmagomedov on his record in his last fight. Okay, decision loss. We've got Patchy Mix there. Patchy Mix, extremely durable. Say what you want about him. Being in there with the best guys in the division, never been finished, you know? Or at least some of the best fighters in the world at bantamweight, and never been finished. Jose Aldo. I mean, who's finishing Jose Aldo? You know, if you're not Conor McGregor or Peter Yan, it's basically not happening. Ricky Simone is in there. Again, a very tough, durable guy. Vinicius couldn't finish him himself. Damon Blackshear. I don't know. I'm not going to say he's super durable, but Mario's not really going to finish you with strikes. He's more of a ground and pound submission guy. And Damon Blackshear has some of the best jiu-jitsu in the division, you know. Then, when he's really outmatching his opponents, we see him get these finishes. And not only that, we see him get them early. You know, Guido Canetti, choke him round 1. Benito Lopez, armbar round 1. Brian Kelleher, choke him round 1. So you see what I'm saying? Like, when he's fighting these guys who he has a big advantage over, he does get those finishes. But he's been fighting some of the best fighters in the world in Umar and Jose Aldo, so he's just not got those finishes. In this fight, he's going up against someone who you would think who is extremely durable, who does push a great pace, but who has been finished in all of his losses. If we look back at Vinicius Oliveira's career, even in his amateur days, the lone loss is a guillotine choke in round 2. You know, he's only lost 3 times in professional MMA. All 3 times are inside the distance. I will say all 3 times are via KO. And Mario Bautista's not really the KO type of guy, you know, unless maybe he's got that ground and pound going off. Basically, what I'm trying to get at, boys, is the angle I'm looking at is potentially an under, or potentially Mario inside the distance. My prediction will be Mario inside the distance. That's just because Vinicius Oliveira has lost inside the distance every time he has fought. Vinicius Oliveira puts it all on the line. I'm almost certain he's going to be gassed after round 3-4. And Mario Bautista is not, unless he had finished Mario Bautista already. And so Mario's going to really be pushing the pace there. So I'm very excited to see odds come out for this one, boys. We don't have any totals yet. There's no overs, there's no unders, so I can't really give you anything there. But I wouldn't mind an under 4.5 rounds if they're going to give me a decent price here. I mean, both of these guys have gone to decision in their last 6-7 fights combined. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a nice under total here. Obviously, it is a 5-round fight, so I'm not sure what they're going to give us, but Vinicius, in my opinion, kind of has to finish him. He's probably going to know that to some degree. You know, he's a smart guy. He's got a smart camp around him. I know he looks like a wild man, but I think he's going to know that he needs to get a finish here. So that gives us a lot of Vinicius Oliveira's win condition if we play the under. And then on top of that, I do think Mario Bautista is going to be putting it on him in round 4 and round 5 in those championship rounds, you know, and I do think that Vinicius Oliveira may continue his pattern of getting finished in every single loss in his entire career, including amateur. Even by KO. Maybe we see a doctor stoppage like the amateur fight. Maybe we see an elbow. Maybe it cuts him, whatever it is. And so if we're playing the under, we get both of these guys win equity captured in. And then maybe we sprinkle Mario Bautista wins in round 4 and round 5 at gigantic odds. I mean, I'm giving you some type of angle here. But overall, boys, my prediction will be Mario Bautista to get this one done in the championship rounds, inside the distance, probably submission for the first time in Vinicius Oliveira's career, just because Mario loves those submissions and he's pretty slick with them. But overall, I think it's going to be a banger fight. Don't know if I'm going to put money on it myself yet. As I say, my picks and my predictions, what I just gave to you, they are not bets. Right? They are not bets. The link is in the bio for bets. They're not bets at all. Bets are completely separate and they are based on the odds. They are based on me thinking through things way more than just this video and then finally sending bets out to all of my VIP Elite Zone as well as placing them myself. So my pick is going to be Mario Bautista in the championship rounds. My bets I don't know yet. I'm going to have a think about it. In the co-main event of the evening, we have Amir Albazi taking on Kyoji Horiguchi in a very exciting UFC flyweight matchup. Amir Albazi coming into this fight, very, very clean record. 17 wins, only 2 losses. Kyoji Horiguchi, a very different record. 40 fights for Kyoji, an MMA and even UFC veteran. 35 wins with only 5 losses in those 40 fights. Great record. Currently, they have the odds on the second newcomer, Kyoji Horiguchi, as a massive -325 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Amir Albazi coming back at +275. First things first, boys, for those of you who may be new to the MMA scene, only started watching in the last, 5-6 years, something like that, you may not know that Kyoji Horiguchi is making his second stint in the UFC. He's already been in the UFC, and the guy actually did amazing in the UFC. If you remember the Demetrius Johnson last second armbar, where he submitted someone with an armbar with 1 second left in the 5th round, aka 1 second left in the fight, that was, unfortunately for him, Kyoji Horiguchi. So he's fought back when Mighty Mouse was champion. That was for a title. So Kyoji Horiguchi has already fought for the UFC title. I mean, he's been there, done it, got the t-shirt, and he's trying to do it again on his second merry-go-round. Kyoji Horiguchi, outside of that fight in the UFC against Demetrius Johnson, potentially the greatest flyweight of all time, he won every fight on that first UFC stint. He went something crazy like 6 or 7-1. So this guy is a very, very high level fighter. And I think everybody saw it when he made his return to the UFC late last year, his debut against Tagir Ulanbekov's second debut, and he demolished him. He really, really beat up Tagir Ulanbekov, and he made him look like he almost didn't deserve to be in there. From minute 1, he was bouncing in and out of range like he always does. Very good outside kickboxing, very good leg kicks, head kicks, body kicks, even knees when he times his opponents, dropping down to sometimes defend the leg kicks that he has put on them. And that's exactly what happened in the Tagir Ulanbekov fight. Tagir couldn't get a read on his striking, couldn't get a beat on his striking, because he's not someone that stands in front of you. He's someone that skirts the octagon, jumps in and out of range, that karate, taekwondo, point karate type style, like Michael Venom Page does. He does it, to a much lesser degree, of course, but he still does that style, and it's very hard to get a beat on. He was landing some brutal low kicks on Tagir Ulanbekov, actually so much so that Tagir Ulanbekov almost couldn't walk because of the low kicks. And then he's timing high kicks off the low kicks, as I mentioned, so very high level. He's out wrestling Tagir Ulanbekov, hurting him with leaping punches, dropping him with left hooks, and ultimately rear naked choking him in round 3. I mean, it was one of the most impressive debuts that we saw in 2025, So Kyoji Horiguchi is here. He's here to stay, and he's here to make one final run at the title. The reason I say final run is because the guy has 40 MMA fights. It's because the guy is 35 years old at flyweight. This guy ain't going to be around in 5 years. He may not even be around in 2. In my opinion, this is Kyoji Horiguchi's time. This is when he needs to go. He cannot afford a loss in the UFC, because at this point, he's in the top 15 of the division. You just beat Tagir Ulanbekov. You're now fast track for the title. The UFC has ranked you at number 8 in the weight class after just one fight. Now you're fighting the number 6 guy after just one fight. If he wins that fight, he could easily move into top 5. I mean, anyone in the top 5 is in line for a title shot. You got Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno currently in the top 5, and those guys are not going to fight for a title. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kyoji Horiguchi takes one of their place, and then now he's next in line for a title after Manel Kape, or maybe when Pantoja comes back. Kyoji Horiguchi has a massive fight against Amir Albazi. If he wins this fight, he may be one after the next in line for a title shot. I'm pretty sure they're going to do either Josh Van versus Manel Kape or Josh Van versus Tatsuro Taira. Whoever doesn't get the fight may get another fight. And then Kyoji's right there. Kyoji's right there. So I'm very interested to see how he fights in this fight. To be honest, I don't think the pressure of the big moment that this is for him is really going to affect him at all. I mean, like I said, he's fought for a UFC title. He's been there, done it. He's fought all over the world, rising champion, fought some of the best fighters on the planet in history. This is just going to be another fight to him. We move over to Amir Albazi. I just wanted to give Kyoji Horiguchi his credit. I wanted to give him a little bit of an introduction to potentially some of the new fans who don't know him, a veteran of the sport and a very high-level fighter as well. But yeah, as I was saying, Amir Albazi, this guy has hardly any losses on his record, so we have to respect him straight off the bat. The guy has a good skill set. He's more of a grappler. He likes to get a lot of his work done with his submission attempts, with his back takes, riding out control, top control, like he did when he squeaked out that fight against Kai Kara-France, a fight that I still think he lost to this day. But at the end of the day, mostly what he does is the grappling, Striking wise, he can strike a little bit, he can kick a little bit, he can box a little bit. But we've seen in that last fight against Brandon Moreno, which was a long time ago now, guys. So he's been out of the octagon for a hell of a long time. He's done a couple of grappling contests against the UFC. Guy like Jafel Filo did lose that one, but he's been outside of the MMA octagon for a very long time. That performance that he had there was a terrible performance. He lost arguably every round, and it wasn't a close fight. Brandon Moreno made it look completely easy. And so he's been out of the octagon for ages, right? Not only that, but when he last was in the octagon, he looked terrible, right? Not only that, but the reason he's been out of the octagon is also quite bad, right? So he's had a lot of injuries. And I was watching one of this guy's interviews, and he said that he was one punch away from paralysis in the Brandon Moreno fight because he had lots of injuries that he hadn't dealt with that he then subsequently dealt with after the fight, right? So you could say it's an excuse for the Brandon Moreno performance. You could also look at it and go, that's a bit of a red flag, talking about one punch away from paralysis, which I do believe in because he's had multiple surgeries. He says he had 3 separate surgeries and he had to pull out of the Tatsuro Taira fight. I believe it was 4 days before the fight. And it's not like he pulled out himself. He didn't get medically cleared, right? I think, you still have to make the decision. I don't know if that was by the UFC doctors or whatnot, but basically some doctor told him, you can't fight, you're not medically cleared to fight. So this guy's had a lot of issues over the last year or two of his life, if you include the Brandon Moreno loss as well. But he is back now. I hope to see him healthy. I hope to see him back performing his best. If he does, he's going to compete well. But if Kyoji performs his best, I think Kyoji's going to get the win. One thing that stood out to me on tape was that when Amir Albazi is fighting these guys who can bounce on the outside, spam kicks, and judge range and distance control well, he doesn't do very well. In his last fight against Brandon Moreno won a lot of that fight on the outside with leaping shots, leaping hooks, good body kicks, overhands, and head kicks, but starting from outside of range. Of course, Brandon Moreno will always engage you in the pocket. He has some tight hooks to the body and some overhands and stuff like that when he's in range. But a lot of that fight, he was on the outside, just styling on him from the outside. And Kyoji Horiguchi has that exact style. He can replicate that style where he's on the outside, bouncing in and out of range, leg kick, body kick, etc., etc. Good overhands, left hooks, like I said. So I just feel like the style of Horiguchi on the feet is going to be the kryptonite of the style of Amir Albazi, who wants you to be in closer range, boxing range, so he can land his boxing, uppercuts, etc. I don't think Kyoji is going to be there for that. When it comes to the grappling, it's where it gets a lot more interesting, I think Amir Albazi will have most of his success on the ground, as he usually does. No surprise there. For this fight, Amir Albazi moved to UAE and did a training camp there with MMA/wrestling coach Azamat Dulugabov. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Probably not, but I gave it a go. And they have some good wrestlers in that camp. He's grappling a lot from what I can see on social media. So I expect him to come in here with a grappling game plan. I mean, he does in every single fight. So I don't think that's going to change here. I do think it's going to be hard to track Kyoji because of his footwork, but Kyoji is a bit of a madman. He will engage. So I do think Amir will be able to get some clinch control. I do think he'll maybe be able to latch onto Horiguchi when Horiguchi enters range. I do think the body lock may be there at times, but I don't think that Amir Albazi is going to have much success when he takes him down. That's the issue. I do think that he's going to be able to take him down. Maybe Tagir Ulanbekov did take Kyoji Horiguchi down in round 1, and Amir Albazi does take almost everybody down, but I don't think that he's going to have much success when he gets him down. I mean, Kyoji Horiguchi, he's seen it all at this point. He's a black belt. He's a veteran on the ground as he is on the feet, and I do think that he'll be able to not only stop some of Albazi's takedowns, but potentially even get takedowns of his own. I mean, who thought that he would out-wrestle Tagir Ulanbekov? I wouldn't be surprised if Amir Albazi shoots in because his leg is hurt, just like Tagir, and he gets reversed and Kyoji takes him down, maybe takes his back. I definitely think that's possible here. So, I'm giving Kyoji a massive advantage overall on the fight, because he's got little advantages everywhere. I think the striking advantage is quite pronounced. I think the experience advantage is quite pronounced. I think the wrestling advantage is not there, but I do think he can have success himself. I think the grappling advantage is not there, but I do think he can have success himself. I think the durability advantage is not there, but I think it's pretty similar. I think both of them can hurt each other just as they would. I think Kyoji is more dangerous on the feet, but maybe a little bit more chinny. But when you put all of that into the pot, Kyoji ends up being quite a bit above in the power rankings than Amir Albazi. So I'm picking Kyoji Horiguchi to win this fight. Does he get done inside the distance? It's kind of hard for me to see Amir Albazi getting finished here. I mean, he's fought some very good fighters in Brandon Moreno and Kai Kara France, and he was never finished in those fights. So, I feel like Kyoji Horiguchi will win a decision, a clear decision, but I don't think he's going to get a finish. By the end of the day, who knows? My pick is Kyoji Horiguchi. Now, boys, this is going to be a banger for however long it lasts. We have MIchal Oleksiejczuk taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. Oleksiejczuk, record of 21 wins, 9 losses. Marc-Andre Barriault, on the other hand, 17 wins, 10 losses. So both of these guys, no stranger to an L, but both of these guys, no stranger to an exciting matchup either. The odds makers still giving respect to MIchal Oleksiejczuk as he is a minus 280 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Marc-Andre Barriault coming back at plus 240. Weird one, boys. I mean, I don't really ever know what to expect when Marc-Andre Barriault fights in the octagon. I mean, we used to know what to expect from him. He was this guy that would walk forward into range, pressure you, get you in the clinch, and use his patented clinch uppercuts, pace, and elite cardio game to basically wear you down and break you. And then he started getting cracked and hurt and knocked out a little bit more. And ever since that Chidi fight, he cannot be trusted with his chin. And if he cannot be trusted with his chin, his whole game falls apart, because he literally puts himself on a platter to be hit. So if he's putting himself on a platter to be hit, and now his chin isn't what it was, he could just go to sleep at any point. Look, this guy can still mix it up. This guy's still a bit of a force because he's like a hurricane. He's going to walk forward. And if he does take your shots, if his chin does show up, like it did against Shara Magomedov, for example, semi-randomly, if his chin shows up and he doesn't get knocked out, he's gonna make it a fight of the night, like he did against Shara Magomedov. He's going to compete, even though he's outmatched skill for skill. But if his chin don't show up, he's just going to get KO'd early. And the issue is now he's fighting against MIchal Oleksiejczuk, someone who he's going to KO you early if your chin isn't going to hold up, So it's almost like the worst type of matchup for Marc-Andre Barriault, seeing that it's a guy in MIchal Oleksiejczuk who hits really hard, is really good at picking his shots, big power for the division, and just so dangerous early. He's like a storm. He's like a hurricane himself. I don't think that's the type of guy you want to be going head to head with, like Marc-Andre Barriault will do. Unless, he's Marc-Andre Barriault of 2015, where he's unfinishable. But this is 2025, and I shouldn't say 2015. Maybe it was more like 2020 times. But I think that's kind of when, I don't know when the Chidi fight was, but it was probably like 2021. That's kind of when it started to drop downhill. Because before that, pre-UFC and even early UFC, I mean, the guy was unfinishable, Yeah, it's just a tough fight for Marc-Andre Barriault, in my opinion. MIchal Oleksiejczuk is now at the Fighting Nerds. He's training. He looks to be in better shape. He looks to be performing better. I know there are only 2 first-round knockouts we can speak about. Cedric Dumas, I cashed big on that one. Against Gerald Meerschaert, I cashed big on that one as well. I watched it live. I was there in Chicago for that. And that was like such an easy bet, such an easy pick. I even gave it out as a ladder for free on my Instagram. Go follow my Instagram if you want good content on there. That's not on YouTube. I gave MIchal Oleksiejczuk moneyline KO and KO round 1. I mean, they're kind of easy bets. And honestly, I might have to go back to the well for this one. We ain't facing someone like Gerald Meerschaert with poor durability now, but I don't think his durability is the best. Sometimes it does look poor. So yeah, it's just a tough fight for Mark to get going. And if he does get going though, then we could see a war. I just think it's going to be hard for him to get going. Boys, in MMA betting, oftentimes it comes down to like what happens in the fight on that day can be very different than what will happen in the fight on another day. For example, like a fighter could get KO'd early a lot of the time, right? But if he doesn't get KO'd early, how's the fight going to play out? Because sometimes fighters fade after 5 minutes. And I'll tell you now, MIchal Oleksiejczuk is not the same fighter in round 2 as he is in round 1. We know that for a fact, especially if he's being pushed and cardio dumped, stuff like that, right? So although I feel like MIchal Oleksiejczuk will knock Marc-Andre Barriault out in round 1 a lot of the time, if he doesn't do that, because he's not going to do that every time they fight. If they fight 100 times, he's not going to just knock him out in round 1 every time. Of course not, right? Like that probably would never happen with almost any fighter in the division, right? It's just, that's not how life works, right? Shit happens differently each time it plays out. And we see that with rematches all the time, We spoke about Diego Lopez and Alexander Volkanovski. They had a rematch. Gene Silva and Lopez, if they fight again, it probably goes different, whatever it is, right? So I have to kind of weigh it up and go, all right, MIchal Oleksiejczuk KO in round 1 is going to be my official prediction. But if that doesn't get going, or if that doesn't happen, how confident am I in Marc-Andre Barriault getting going and actually winning the fight? Because that's going to determine whether I bet on it or not, right? That's really going to determine whether I bet on it. And again, boys, I'm trying to give you the utmost knowledge, so you can not only follow my picks, right, that I give out for free on YouTube, but you can also make your own bets and understanding of MMA, right? Of course, if you don't want to do any of that work, you just like the content, you can literally just copy and paste the exact bets that I play. The link is in the bio for that. But what I'm saying here is I'm kind of giving you an insight into why picks, predictions are not bets, because my pick and prediction is MIchal Oleksiejczuk to get a KO in round 1, right? But where the bet comes in is when I look at the entire fight, not just my prediction, and I determine how much of a percentage chance Marc-Andre Barriault has to win via decision, via KO, via submission, how much of a percentage chance MIchal Oleksiejczuk has to KO him in round 1, which is my official prediction, times by how much percentage he has to win via submission, decision, KO in round 2, KO in round 3, Marc-Andre Barriault submission in round 3, Marc-Andre Barriault wins via KO in round 3. I calculate all of this shit on the back end. I assign percentages to every single outcome. Then I make my decision. Once I have that, I then look at the odds and I look at what the odds are saying, right? The odds have odds for every single different outcome possible. Then I compare my odds that I am already made, or my percentage, to the bookmaker's odds, and I find where there's discrepancies. If there's a discrepancy in Marc-Andre Barriault winning by decision, but I'm not picking him to win by decision, I'll still maybe bet him by decision, even though I don't even think it's going to happen, because there was a discrepancy in the odds, right? That is why picks are not bets. And that is literally how to make money from sports betting. I just told you the entire game there. Maybe rewind, rewatch it. That was off the top of my head, just giving you the game in a minute or two. But that's literally what it all comes down to. With that being said, my official prediction on this fight is MIchal Oleksiejczuk to KO Marc-Andre Barriault in round 1 and continue his new run, his new win streak as a Fighting Nerds student. Now, this is a high-level fight, boys. Gene Matsumoto is taking on Farid Basharat. Gene Matsumoto, 17 wins under his belt and only 1 loss. And that loss could have easily been scored his way. We could be speaking about an 18-0 UFC bantamweight prospect here. He has taken on Farid Basharat, who officially is a 14-0 undefeated UFC bantamweight prospect. Both of these guys are ranked barely in the top 30. So it just shows you the level of the UFC bantamweight division, and I can't wait to talk about this one. The undefeated Farid Basharat is a favorite yet again in the UFC, as you would expect, at minus 235 odds with the underdog price tag on. Could have been still undefeated Gene Matsumoto, sitting at plus 200. Yeah, very high level fight here, guys. And as I said, Gene Matsumoto could be undefeated. We could be looking at 2 undefeated prospects here. Gene Matsumoto, 2 split decisions in his last 2 fights. One of those was a loss against Rob Font in a fight that I genuinely thought he won, and he probably only lost it because Rob Font faked the glove touch and punched him in the face. So, you know, you're looking at basically 2 undefeated prospects here, but his last fight against Miles Jones was a very close fight. I mean, on another day, that may have went the other way, right? So I guess maybe 14-1, or what did I say, 17-1 is fair after all. Farid Basharat, on the other hand, legitimately undefeated. You know, nobody has a claim to say that they beat him. This is just a great fight, boys, a great matchup, and I can't wait to see it. Let's get straight into it. Farid Basharat has kind of established himself as the better Basharat brother. I mean, I'm saying that because obviously Javid Basharat now has a couple of losses in his division, whereas Farid is still undefeated, still pushing through. And if he has a win over Gene Matsumoto, this guy's getting a top 15 fighter, top 10 fighter in his next fight. Like, let's not make no mistake about it. But it's not going to be an easy task. Gene Matsumoto is a very good fighter, good leg kicker, good pocket boxer, good grappling, good submissions. We've seen in that Dan Argueta fight that, you know, he can latch onto a submission like a guillotine choke, and even with 1 second left, he can still tap you out. Very, very good get-ups. Not great wrestling, but decent takedowns himself. But when he does get taken down, he's got good get-ups, great cardio, durable, you know, like he's just good everywhere. And then Farid Basharat, on the other hand, good everywhere, good range control. He likes to fight on the outside a little bit more. Gene Matsumoto likes to stand in a pocket and swing a lot of the time and, you know, really go toe-to-toe with his opponents. Farid Basharat's a little bit smarter, a little bit smoother. He stays on the outside. I'm not even going to say smarter. It's just better for his style of fight. You know, some people win all their fights by brawling in the middle and pocket boxing. wrestling, it's just a different style. But Farid likes to stay on the outside, times his entries on takedowns extremely well, doesn't have the best jiu-jitsu to keep his opponents down, but has enough jiu-jitsu to keep them down if they're not good enough, and has enough jiu-jitsu to still rack up some control time so he's winning the round. He's not just getting a takedown, his opponent's instantly getting back up. And one thing about Farid is that the guy has elite cardio and can shoot about 20-30 takedowns a fight. Now, anytime you can shoot 20-30 takedowns a fight without gassing out that bad, you're probably going to be top 10 in the division, unless you're just like a paper bag and get knocked out by a gust of wind. Outside of that, really, you're basically going to be top 10 in the division because it's such a unusual skill set. Hardly anyone can do it, but these people like Farid Basharat, who fight at such a, not even a high pace, because on the feet he's not that high, he's quite smart, but who fight with so much tenacity in the wrestling and have that cardio to take you down 20 times, shoot 20 takedowns like he did against Taylor Lapalus. It's just so hard to beat, boys. Just so hard to beat. If you can dictate where the fight goes, even not by the jiu-jitsu, if you can't keep him down, you just take him back down again. And that's what Farid does. Like, you might get back up because his jiu-jitsu isn't great, but he's just going to take you back down again. The thing about Gene Matsumoto is he's fought that style multiple times. I mean, he fought Dan Argueta, who tried to do that to him, and basically did do that to him until he got a submission. But even in that fight, he was probably winning the fight, arguably winning the fight, even though Dan Argueta was taking him down like consistently, multiple, like every 30 seconds, Argueta would get a takedown, it seemed like, right? I think it was probably about that. Like I'd say about every minute, even like every 50, 45 seconds, he was getting a takedown, legitimate takedown on Gene. But Gene was like arguably winning because he was just landing some good elbows, some good clinch knees in between the Dan's takedowns, right? So like Gene's fought the style that Farid will have to employ here, in my opinion. I don't think Farid will be able to like win a kickboxing fight for 15 minutes. I think he's going to do well in a kickboxing fight. He's an elite fighter, but I think both guys will have success. I think where Farid needs to win the fight is probably his grappling, because Gene has been taken down multiple times in his career. Got taken down by Miles Jones 5 times, by Dan Argueta 9 times, and he's basically easy to take down if you want. He's just extremely hard to hold down. So if Farid comes in here and has that elite cardio like we have seen against Taylor Lapalus, I think he can win a decision just based on takedown volume and being smart on the feet anytime they are on there. But if he comes in with not Taylor Lapalus cardio, and to be honest, we've only seen it from him once. We haven't seen him show that elite cardio and just pace, pressure, grit, tenacity in the wrestling. Like that was a Moura fight. We've never seen that outside of that fight for Farid. So it's not like guarantee he's going to be able to do every fight like Moura can. Sometimes people just have an amazing out-of-body performance. In the Chris Gutierrez fight, the guy's not really shooting any takedowns on a guy that has been beaten on the ground multiple times. I was watching that fight, very surprised that why Farid didn't employ a much more grappling-heavy game plan. So he shoots 2 takedowns in that fight, but then in the 17, 18, 19 against Taylor Lapalus, it's a little bit worrisome if you're banking on Farid winning the fight with grappling because he hasn't always shown a propensity to grapple as well as he did against Lapalus. But I think that in the fights that he knew he didn't have to. Even in the Chris Gutierrez fight, it was kind of close, but I guess he thought he was winning. Taylor Lapalus is an extremely good striker, very hard to track down on the feet. So I think Farid knew that, and you saw his game plan evolve because of that. In the Clayton Rodriguez fight, the guy has poor grappling. He took him down straight away. And I think he knew that. So in this fight, I think he knows that he can take Gene down. I think he knows he's going to need to because, in a war, Gene's going to throw more volume. He's probably hits a bit harder. He's probably just a more tough, durable striker. So I think that Farid's going to employ a grappling game plan, and I do think he gets him the win. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a competitive fight, but I think Farid extends his winning streak to 15. I think he goes 15-0 with a decision win. So boys, we normally do the Wheel of Fortune right now. I'm not going to do the Wheel of Fortune because just last week I gave everybody a chance to join my service completely for free to celebrate the 20,000 YouTube subscribers that we got. So thank you for that. By the way, click subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Loads of people watch me and think they're subscribed, but they're actually not. So I ask you to scroll down now to check if you are. But because I gave out that for free, I'm not going to do the Wheel of Fortune where I give you a chance to win for free this week. Maybe I'll revisit it next week or the week after. By the way, that offer is no longer available. You cannot join my service for free. I just did it once off, just for 1 week, just to say thank you for getting me up to 20,000 subscribers as a celebratory giveaway. At the end of the day, I don't need the money. It's a good bonus to have a subscription service where I help people make money betting on MMA. It's rewarding to me as well. Why wouldn't I have it? Elon Musk is a billionaire and he charges me $10 a month for X Premium, Twitter Premium. People always say that, like, oh, if you earn so much from sports betting, why do you have a subscription service? Well, why does anyone do anything to make more money if they already have money? It makes no sense, right? Like, why would anyone ever make more money than they already have? Like, Elon Musk has SpaceX. Why would he make another company like Tesla and sell cars? Why not just give the cars away for free? Because he's already got SpaceX. He's already a billionaire. Why would he charge $10 a month for X Premium if he's already got billions of dollars? Like, that's how life works. You want to get as much money as possible. You want to have multiple revenue streams for many different reasons. So of course I'm going to do that. And boys, if you want to sign up, like, there's no more free stuff. That ain't happening for the entire year. Like, I'm never doing that again. You're not getting any free joining. That was last week. It is what it is. Hit the link in the bio. Go to sublaunch.com/lucrative MMA and sign up for an elite monthly package. And you can personally copy and paste all my bets, right? If you don't want to guess what bets I'm on, if you don't want to take my predictions and make your own bets, then you can literally just copy and paste the personal bets that I placed to earn a full-time income from betting on my favorite sport. So the link is in the bio for that, boys. If you want to join the money team, that's where you have to go. Without further ado, we'll get on to the next fight. All right, next up, we have Jailton Almeida against Rizvan Kuniev. Both fighters coming off fights where they easily could have won. Both fighters go down in the 2025 Robbery of the Year categories. Jailton Almeida coming into this fight with a record of 22 wins, 4 losses. He will think it should be 23 wins and 3 losses. Rizvan Kuniev, on the other hand, 13 wins, 3 losses and 1 draw. But again, he will believe it should be 14 wins with only 2 losses. Is there going to be any controversy in this one? Let's talk about it. Jailton Almeida, currently the favorite as he is in almost every single UFC fight, minus 220 odds with the underdog price tag on. Rizvan Kuniev coming back at plus 185. So this one's going to be a sad one for me, boys. I mean, I have to relive Rizvan Kuniev versus Curtis Blaydes because that's who Kuniev last fought. And as I said when I introduced these guys, both of them are coming off a controversial defeat. So most people scored the Kuniev fight for Kuniev against Curtis Blaydes. And the reason I'm so unhappy about that, even to this day, boys, is because they robbed your boy off insane amount of bags. We had the double K parlay with Kuniev decision and co-decision. Kuniev decision plus 600, co-decision plus 1,000. Co-decision cashed, so we was waiting on Kuniev decision. I think I was due to win about 70 grand. And yeah, I mean, you can guess what happened there. It was a split decision loss. Most people scored it for Kuniev. I rewatched that fight. It's an insane scorecard to give Curtis Blaydes round 3. He could have won round 1. That's it. 30-27 was better than 29-28. I remember after that fight, loads of people were saying Curtis Blaydes won round 3. Or not loads, but some people were. And I rewatched that fight and boys, he didn't win that fight at all. He didn't win that round at all. That was a terrible decision. But it is what it is, boys. We move. Sometimes we get good decisions. Sometimes we get bad decisions. So it is what it is. On the other hand, it's so funny. And I just said that. I bet on Alexander Volkov against Jailton Almeida. A lot of people scored that against Volkov. I thought Jailton won. I should not have won that bet. So I got lucky on that bet, right? In Jailton's last fight. But then I got unlucky on the Kuniev one, right? But here's the real source behind both of them. Don't worry about robberies. Don't worry about losses or wins. We're trying to make money, right? So if we can take a different perspective on it, I bet Kuniev at plus 225, right? So the robbery was a robbery on a great bet because of the odds, right? If Kuniev was minus 1,000, that would have been a terrible, terrible bet. And I shouldn't complain about the robbery because my bet was terrible, right? On the other hand, Volkov, I bet at plus 180, which in my opinion was a great bet, right? I mean, plus 180 is huge. All the damage upside in his favor. It's not a guarantee that Jailton's not going to get KO'd. Jailton gets KO'd a lot in that iteration. He just didn't in that single fight there, right? So although I got lucky on the Volkov decision and I got lucky on the Kuniev decision, if we actually look at it, both of those bets were good. So I didn't really get lucky because I made a good bet on Alexander Volkov. I've got lucky in that iteration, but the bet wasn't lucky at all. If that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, you need to learn a little bit more about plus EV betting. If it does make sense, again, just like earlier in the show, you basically have to source to make real money from MMA betting and make it a full-time income. You need to understand about value. You need to understand about percentages, iterations, plus EV, all of that type of stuff. So that's there, boys. But this time, these two are going in. Someone's going to win. So they were both disappointed in the last fight, but probably, unless it's a draw, they're not going to be disappointed in this one, right? Someone's going to win. For my money, it's Jailton Almeida. Not actually for my money, because I haven't bet on Jailton Almeida. Again, picks and bets are different. But I am picking him to win. The reason I'm picking him to win is because at the end of the day, man, if you don't have really, really good grappling defense, you're going to lose against Jailton Almeida if you don't knock him out inside the first minute or two, right? That's really what it comes down to. Jailton Almeida fights are actually extremely easy to break down, right? They might be a little bit harder to bet on, but they're actually fairly easy to bet on as well, in my opinion, because he does one thing and he does it so well, and he can basically do it to everyone apart from a few select guys. So Curtis Blaydes was able to defend the body lock, defend the takedowns, even though he got taken down like 10 times against Jailton Almeida. I think it was 9 times officially. There was never any real control from Jailton Almeida in a jiu-jitsu sense, because Curtis Blaydes is a very strong wrestler and he was able to instantly get back up to his feet when he was slammed, which stopped Jailton from getting his body lock, right, reaping the legs, getting his hooks in, which is where his entire game is. If he can't get his hooks in on you, he probably ain't going to beat you, right? That's really how it comes down to, because his body triangle is so good, his back control is so good, his back take is so good. But if he can't get that, then he's kind of effed. And we saw that in the Curtis Blaydes fight. He couldn't get that. Curtis Blaydes was too solid, too compact, too much of a good wrestler to where he would give up a takedown because of the strength. Jailton's just so strong, but he wouldn't give up like control because he was too strong and too good of a wrestler, too good at scrambling, right? Now, I can't say the same for Kuniev. I think Kuniev is good, but I saw Curtis Blaydes take this guy down within the first minute of their fight, and I saw Kuniev give his back up and crawl to the fence. If he does that, like Derek Lewis did against Jailton, Jailton is putting hooks in immediately and probably finishing him from the top position. I mean, Jailton Almeida, elite black belt practitioner. Rizvan Kuniev, he's a striker. Let's be real. Like, he is a striker. He's not a grappler. Yes, he can grapple. He can wrestle if you can't do it. But if you actually go up against a legit wrestler, grappler, he ain't going to be wrestling him. He ain't going to be wrestling Curtis Blaydes. He ain't going to be wrestling Almeida. And since I've seen him give his back up, since I've seen him slam takedown, I mean, just go back and watch the first round of that Curtis Blaydes and Jailton Almeida fight and tell me that Jailton Almeida can't do the exact same thing. Is it going to happen on this iteration? I don't know. Is Jailton Almeida a type of guy where if he gets hit once really hard, he could quit? Maybe. Can Kuniev land that shot? Yes, he's a great striker. I personally feel like Jailton Almeida is going to be able to do what Curtis Blaydes did, except for he actually could put the hooks in. Curtis Blaydes can't put hooks in. He's a wrestler. He ain't a jiu-jitsu guy. For whatever reason, he ain't athletic like that. He ain't flexible like that. He ain't putting hooks in. But Jailton Almeida is. And if he does that to Kuniev, I think he's going to submit him or finish him in round 1. So my prediction for this fight is Jailton Almeida to win in round 1.
All right, lads, sorry for that quick intermission and welcome back to the show. I had to take a quick flight to Sydney, Australia, which is where I currently am now. I'm looking at the beautiful Sydney horizon as I look out this window right here. Luke Reeve James had to come and see one of his favorite fighters of all time, Alexander Volkanovski, take on Diego Lopez in a fight that may be Alexander Volkanovski's retirement fight. So how could I miss it? I'm here, there, everywhere, and right now I'm in Sydney, but that doesn't mean the show has to end. In fact, the show's just getting started. So let me go right in to the next fight.
Next up, we have Dustin Jacoby taking on Julius Walker. Jacoby coming into this fight with a record of 21 wins, 9 losses, 1 draw. Julius Walker, on the other hand, 7 wins with only 1 loss. There are currently no odds out for Dustin Jacoby and Julius Walker, but hopefully they add them in the coming days.
So boys, this is a bit of a weird fight. Dustin Jacoby, obviously a veteran of the game, right? If you don't know who Dustin Jacoby is, how long have you been an MMA fan? How many times have you watched the UFC? Because this guy has competed in the UFC since millennia at this point. He's been in the UFC for a very long time. And he has not only been in the UFC for a long time, but he's been in combat sports for a long time. Right? Before the UFC, before MMA even, he was competing in kickboxing in glory. You're talking 10 years ago now, fighting some of the best kickboxers on the entire planet. He brought that skill set over to MMA, and we have seen him knock out some pretty good fighters, damage some pretty good fighters, and he has been in there with the best. You're talking Alonzo Menefield, who does share an opponent with Julius Walker. That is their only common opponent. You're talking about MIchal Oleksiejczuk. You're talking about Dominic Reyes. Khalil Roundtree, some of the very best fighters in the division. On the other hand, you have Julius Walker, who is at the complete opposite end of his career. He is just making his waves in the UFC. You know, he came in, fought Alonzo Menifeld. I believe it was a short notice matchup, fought pretty valiantly there, did lose a decision. And then in his next fight against Rafael Sequeira, won a decision. I know a lot of people had bet the fight doesn't go to decision there, bet Julius Walker KO. I thought he would go through him, to be honest. It wasn't the best look that he couldn't finish Rafael Sequeira, but it is what it is. So these guys couldn't be more opposite. You know, not only is one guy a veteran and one guy's a newcomer, but there's something else which is massively different in this fight, which is the stylistic. So Julius Walker, for the most part, is a grappler, guys. You know, he likes to go out there, gets his clinch game going, gets his control time going. We saw in the Alonzo Menifeld fight, even though he couldn't take him down that often, he basically couldn't really establish any top control on Alonzo Menifeld. He still was able to clinch him up against the cage and win minutes in that fight just based on clinching, right? And grappling to some degree, although it wasn't on the ground. Rafael Sequeira fight, he takes him down every round, you know, dominates him from top position, 12 minutes of control time, right? On the other hand, we've got Dustin Jacoby. He's never shot a takedown in his life. I don't even know if he wrestles. I don't even know if he goes out there and offensively wrestles in his training practice. I would be surprised if he puts more than one training session per week, you know, more than 3 a month, more than 15 a year to like offensively wrestle. And yes, I think he defensively wrestles every single session almost, right? And he has very good takedown defense. He's established an entire career in the UFC, much like Israel Adesanya, with takedown defense and striking, nullifying your takedown. So the thing that stands out to me here is Julius Walker going to be able to get his grappling game going? You know, it's a very hard one to call for me. You know, very hard one to call. If Dustin Jacoby was about 3 or 4 years younger, I would be picking him out right here fairly easily, but he's not. You know, he's at the tail end of his career now. I don't think he's going to be in the UFC for another 5 years, you know, maybe 2 or 3 maximum. And that's when you start to see the decline. That's when you start to see the drop off. And already I have seen some decline. Dustin Jacoby getting knocked out by Dominic Reyes, getting hurt by Alonzo Menifeld. You know, it seems to be his chin maybe degrading a little bit. And when that starts happening at the light heavyweight division, anything can happen. You know, you can start getting knocked out by fighters who are not on your level striking. So yeah, that's what's given me a pause on Dustin Jacoby. Obviously, the odds are not out yet, so I don't know what the odds are. If Jacoby is lined as an underdog, I'm betting him all day. If Julius Walker, conversely, is lined plus 300 or more, I'd probably take a poke at him. You know, it's one of those fights because it's hard to call. I'm going to go with Dustin Jacoby for the win, though, guys. And the reason is because he has too much of a experience advantage and a massive striking advantage and very good takedown defense, you know. So Julius Walker's going to either have to catch him clean or put on a great performance, to which he hasn't really shown in his career yet, taking a massive step up in competition. It doesn't mean he can't win. I'm actually rooting for Julius Walker, and I hope he wins this one. But it's a tough matchup, right? And it's one of those ones where I need to see it from him before I believe it, right? It's hard for me to pick him to beat Dustin Jacoby when he hasn't shown that level before. This is his time to show it, so go out and show it. Good luck, but he hasn't done it yet, so I'm not going to pick him. I will pick Dustin Jacoby for the win.
Next up, we got Cong Wang Cong taking on Eduardo Moura. This is a very exciting matchup for me personally, boys. I don't know about you, but this should be fairly violent. We have Cong Wang coming into this fight with a record of 8 wins, only 1 loss, boys. Very same thing for Eduardo Moura here, 12 wins with only 1 loss. We have Cong Wang sitting as the minus 210 favorite, as we are used to seeing. Eduardo Moura, on the other hand, plus 180 underdog, as we are not used to seeing.
This is a banger, guys. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like women's MMA, but you're going to like this women's MMA fight. Cong Wang and Eduardo Moura, as I said, these guys are actually finishers, you know, and you rarely see that in women's MMA for a multitude of reasons. But Cong Wang is a finisher with the striking, and Moura is a finisher with the grappling. You know, just like the last fight, both fighters like to do the complete opposite. Cong Wang is a lifelong striker, guys. Moura, grappler. Cong Wang is such a lifelong striker that she fought Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing rules down near 10 years ago. I believe it may be 2015 off the top of my mind. You know, she beat her. So that's the level that she is operating at. You know, she beat the greatest women's MMA fighter of all time, do not at me, via decision in kickboxing rules 10 years ago. You know, you see that skill set when she fights. She has very, very good striking, extremely patient, sometimes too patient, especially if you have a round 2, round 3 prop or a KO prop on her, like I have a couple of times when she has fought. Very, very good body shots. You know, she was beating Bruna Brasil to a pulp, to the body, and I had thought that Bruna Brasil may quit from body shots in that fight. Ariane Lipski fight, again, she's tagging her up at times, And I thought she could finish that fight. She just didn't step on the gas. One reason I think she doesn't step on the gas is maybe because she has a chin issue. And I'm actually going to go on camera and say that right now. I believe Kong Wang has a chin issue. And let me tell you something now, boys. If you are a women's MMA fighter and I'm saying you have a chin issue, that is big, big cause for concern. You need to be worried here. Because if you have a chin issue in women's MMA, it means that your chin is so bad. Because women's MMA fighters, for the most part, they don't have power. Why don't they have power? Because they don't weigh anything, right? We just spoke about Julius Walker and Dustin Jacoby. These guys weigh in at 205 pounds. They're walking around at 240 pounds, some of these guys that are fighting a light heavyweight. 240, 230. These are massive, massive humans. You're talking about Eduarda Moura. She just moved up from 115. She's walking around at 130. 130 pounds versus 230 pounds. I mean, genetics, power, athleticism, it all goes on the men's side. So when you have a women's MMA, when you look at women's MMA, the knockout ratio is way less and the knockdown ratio is way less. The violence in general is way less, right? Not only that, but you add in skill sets and men's MMA's athleticism, explosivity, not just weight, and also that the skill is higher because they've been around longer. Basically, what I'm trying to say is if you have a bad chin in women's MMA, you don't get found out that often, because you don't have opponents in front of you that can expose that. Whereas if you have a bad chin in men's MMA, you're going to get found out because the men are bigger, they're heavier, they hit harder, they're more explosive. You get what I'm trying to say? Even if you take it down to the flyweight division in men's MMA, the chin issues are hidden a lot more because the men weigh less, right? But if you go over to women's MMA, it's even less. So if I notice that a woman's MMA fighter has a chin issue, that means they have a real issue. Now, look, at the end of the day, Kong Wang has never been knocked out, boys. So you may be looking at me saying, what are you talking about, James? She's never been knocked out. So I'm basing this on the Ariane Lipski fight, the Gabriela Fernandez fight, and a couple of fights on the regionals, right? To me, it looks like that she doesn't have the best reactions to getting hit. That's what I see. That's my expert opinion. That's what I'm giving. That's my 2 cents. And I could be wrong. I say expert opinion because my full-time income is from this game. I made it from betting on MMA, not from selling a service, not from social media like a lot of these guys. None of that, right? So that's why I say expert opinion. But at the end of the day, experts in this game get things wrong all the time, right? It's just like science. Expert scientists get things wrong every single day. That's why science is at a high level. Just like sports betting. That's why the market is so sharp, because the experts get things wrong all the time. Every single week, I'm going to have bad bets, right? I could have a bad take here. Maybe she doesn't have a bad chin. In my opinion, she does. Can Eduarda Moura catch it? That's the more prevalent question in this fight. I personally don't think so, just because Moura is more of a grappler. Like I said, Kong Wang is such a higher level striker that I don't think Moura is going to get it done. But maybe she will. It can happen. If she's got a bad chin, anything can happen. What this fight comes down to, in my opinion, is not the chin issue, but I did want to mention that, right? Because I'm trying to give you as much information as possible, as I always say. But what I believe this fight really comes down to is the grappling. Can Eduarda Moura get the takedowns on Kong Wang? So I'm looking at Kong Wang's tape when I'm doing research, and I'm like, damn, this girl has extremely high level balance. She's very strong for the weight class, very physical, and good takedown defense. She is drilling over there with Yadong Song, who is a good friend. At Team Alpha Male, these guys are drilling wrestling and wrestling defense together every day, and lots of other women's MMA fighters who are there as well. So I think she's going to come in, 1, extremely prepared, but 2, with a skill set that she has been training for years. It's not like she's only a striker. She's a lifelong striker, but she's a martial artist, make no mistake about it. I mean, she has submission wins on her record. She's getting takedowns over these girls where I'm watching. They're not getting takedowns on her. She was only submitted from Fernandez dropping her badly and then jumping on a rear naked choke. So it's like, I think more often than not, she will defend the takedowns. And if she does that, I think she's going to piece Moura up on the feet and ultimately TKO her. Yes, I'm predicting Kong Wang for another TKO, which hasn't hit in like 3 fights now. The last 2 fights they could have hit. But this is a tricky fight. This isn't like this isn't a home run spot for Wang, because at the end of the day, if Moura does get the takedowns, I don't trust Wang off the bottom because I've never seen it before. I've seen her takedown defense. I haven't seen her jiu-jitsu on the bottom. So there's always a risk there. You play minus 200 or whatever line I introduced them as, right? You play that line and then she gets taken down in minute 1 and she's got 0 off her back. And you're kicking yourself, or but maybe she just knocks her out. So like, that's the game we play. My prediction is a knockout for Cong Wang in round 3. Quick reason I'm picking round 3. Cong Wang is a builder. She takes time to get going. And also, if we've seen Eduarda Moura's career, this is something massive that I didn't mention, is that she is a gasser, boys. You know, she gasses out in a lot of fights. I thought it was because she was cutting too much weight. She's moved up a weight class and still gassed out in her last fight against Lauren Murphy, not Lauren, the woman, not the guy, right? So she gassed out in round 3 of that fight, almost got guillotined. Lauren was putting it on her. And to be fair to her, she did come back later in that 3rd round, you know, and finish quite well. But she still did gas out in that fight. And so I don't think it's a weight cut issue now. I think it's just a Eduarda Moura issue. And if she gasses out in round 3, Cong Wang can definitely catch her. So that's why I'm predicting round 3 KO for Cong Wang.
Next up, we have Alex Morono, still in the UFC. Contrary to popular belief, I would say, taking on Daniil Donchenko, a UFC newcomer, made his debut in 2025, and he's definitely going to look to take some of that Alex Morono UFC veteran hype here. Morono is coming into this fight with a record of 24 wins and 12 losses, absolute MMA veteran record, half the number of losses as he does have wins. Still quite a high number of losses there for professional MMA. Daniil Donchenko has 12 wins with only 2 losses. No odds here for Alex Morono versus Daniil Donchenko, but I'm expecting Donchenko to be a decently sized favorite against the aging veteran Morono.
Now, this is a very interesting fight to me, boys. Unlike the last 2, this is a striker versus striker matchup. Now, look, Morono has that sneaky guillotine. He has some submissions on his record. His guard isn't too bad, but I'm definitely going to say this is a striker versus striker matchup. Boys, one thing I want to say before I run through these next few fights. I am in Sydney right now. I have many things to do in Sydney. And so I'm going to run through these pretty quick and I'm just going to give you my overall thoughts. As always, if you want to get my final thoughts on the fights in detail, leaving no stone unturned in research, and also my official bets, you can do that. The link is in the bio for that. But for the rest of this video, I'm just going to go through things very quickly. So I really rate Donchenko's improvements. You know, that's one thing I wanted to mention. Donchenko has improved from fight to fight to fight to fight like I've almost never seen anyone improve. You know, and I won't say that like that's a silly thing to say. I'm a little bit over exaggerating there. What I'm trying to say, boys, is this guy, like even 3 years ago, he isn't the same fighter as he is now. You know, he's much better striker now. He builds now. He seems to have more confidence in there now. He knows his game better now. And he really, really showcases a solid striking skill set as the fight goes on. And I think that he will do that here against Alex Morono. Morono is a veteran. You know, he's going to be a tough out for anyone unless you bulldoze him early in round 1, like Carlos Leao did, you know, but Donchenko doesn't have the same physicality of Carlos Leao. Carlos Leao, one of the most physical in the entire division, right? So that's not a big thing to say. I do think Alex Morono will land some high kicks early. I think he will land some big shots early. But I do think he will start to get hurt as the fight goes on. I don't trust his chin. He's 35 years old. Donchenko is 24. There's an 11-year age disadvantage, in my opinion, for Alex Morono. Big wealth of experience advantage, right? And big advantage in that Donchenko's taken a massive step up in competition here. Right? And you could say Morono's taken a step down in competition. I think that's fair to say at this point in their careers. So that could leave some tricky stuff hanging. That could mean that we see Morono do better than expected. And I think he might early, but I'm trusting Donchenko. I'm trusting in his youth, physicality, power, durability upside, and I'm trusting in his improvement upside to get the job done. I think be a TKO in round 2 or round 3. Alex puts on a great effort. The fans say, you know, shout out to Alex, but it just wasn't enough today. The younger man is now prevalent in the sport and the younger man is kicking the older man out. You know, MMA is unforgiving. So that's my opinion on this fight. Donchenko, round 2 or round 3.
Next up, we're in the strawweight division. Bruna Brasil taking on Kelten Souza. Bruna Brasil coming into this fight with a record of 11 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw. Kelten Souza, 15 wins with 6 losses. Bruna Brasil is the minus 130 favorite in this contest. The underdog price tag on Kelten Souza coming back at plus 110.
This fight's interesting, boys. I mean, flip a coin on this one. I lean to the Kelten Souza side. The reason I lean to the Kelten Souza side is because I think she could be a bit more durable. You know, we have seen Bruna Brasil hurt badly and even knocked out, which again, as I always say, in women's MMA, it's not ideal if you see a fighter get knocked out. Like on the feet, standing knockout, unless it's some crazy head kick or something, it's not ideal. Doesn't mean I have a bad chin. She got knocked out by Denise Gomez, who's a very tough girl, throws with heavy lever. But how many knockouts has Denise Gomez got in the UFC, even though she looks tough and she throws heavy? Right? Like, let's be real. So I don't know if that's a great look by Bruna Brasil. I feel like Kelten Souza is a little bit more durable. I think she's got a bit more power in the hands. Brazil probably has better kicks. Brazil probably a bit smarter, makes better decisions maybe. Better fight IQ, especially being at the fighting nerd. She should be improving. Even at her ripe old age of 32 for a women's MMA fighter, she could be improving. But yeah, I give the edge to Silva in the durability department, in the power department, and that could be it right there. And then potentially in the takedowns, like maybe she'll be the one pressing the takedowns more than Bruna Brazil. So yeah, I'm going to look into this one a little bit more, guys, but the moment I'm going to call Ketlin Souza to win this one via decision in a close contest. You know, Ketlin Souza had some losses lately, but she could have won them all. You know, I was watching live against Angela Hill and I felt like she won that fight. You know, I was there live in the UFC Apex with my boy Zah. We watched it together and we both thought that Ketlin Souza probably won the fight, but she got the fight scored against her. Sorry, that wasn't against Angela Hill, although that was a close fight as well. She arguably won that fight. She probably, I think she did win that fight. I was talking about the Piera Rodriguez fight, which again, she should have won. So, you know, I feel like she's shown a little bit more in the UFC against probably higher level competition. Yes, Bruna Brazil knocked out Molly McCann, or, you know, she beat Molly McCann badly. But I don't think that's as impressive as going 50-50 with Angela Hill and Piera Rodriguez, in my opinion. So that's going to be my pick. Ketlin Souza via decision.
Stick around for another women's MMA fight. This could be violence here. We've got the zombie girl, Priscila Cachoeira, taking on Claudia Segula. Cachoeira coming into this fight. Not a shiny record. 13 wins, 7 losses, but she puts it on the line every single fight. Claudia Segula, on the other hand, bit more of a regular record we're used to seeing. 7 wins with 2 losses. Claudia Segula sitting as the -135 favorite with the underdog price tag on Priscila Cachoeira coming back at +115.
Man, they're really throwing the women's MMA fights at us right now. So Zombie Girl coming back after being knocked unconscious in her last fight against Jocelyn Edwards, where we cashed a max bet. Me and the Elite Zone cashed a max bet. And wait there. We played Jocelyn Edwards ITD. That's crazy. It was like +800 or something. That was one of the most insane lines ever. Shout out to us. Shout out to me. You know, you gotta blow your own trumpet in this life, boys. That's the one way that you're gonna make it. But let me calm down. Boys, at the end of the day, many iterations of fights can happen. So although Zombie Girl got knocked out in her last fight, am I predicting her to get knocked out in this fight? It's kind of unlikely. You know, it's funny to me, this fight, boys, because Zombie Girl, you know, she made a career of having crazy durability. So if her durability is gone now, it's not going to be good for her, you know? And then on top of that, the other part of her game, like let's say her durability is gone, let's just play this thought experiment. If her durability is gone, what's the other part of her game? She doesn't have any. Her entire career was marred by poor grappling, poor takedown defense, getting finished on the mat, having no jiu-jitsu. So if she doesn't have durability anymore, what does she have? Power? I guess she still has power at 37 years of age, but it's not looking good for Priscila Cachoeira if her chin is gone. I'm not outright saying that. I'm just saying if it is, then that's bad luck for her. On the other hand, we have Claudia Segula, who, you know, got beat by Melissa Mullins, got pounded out, got smashed on bottom in that first fight, in her debut. But she performed well in her next fight. You know, she seemed to have improved a little bit. And so it's a tough one for me, boys. We got 27-year-old, I believe, versus a 37-year-old, 10-year age disadvantage, I think, for Priscila Cachoeira. Way more experience, fought way better girls, beat way better girls, Priscila, way more powerful. But I kind of feel like Claudia Segula is going to be able to get on top of her. You know, going to be able to kick her from the outside, stay safe, get on top of her, maybe get takedowns, and expose that horrific jiu-jitsu that we've always seen from Priscila Cachoeira. Cachoeira is very game, and she doesn't give up, and she even cheats to stay alive, but she isn't good at jiu-jitsu. And I think we could see that in this fight. I don't rate Segula at the moment, but I think she's improving. One thing I know is that Zombie Girl's not improving. In fact, she's degrading. So my pick will be Claudia Segula here.
Now we have Muin Gafarov taking on Jacob Wikleks, who smashed a hammer in Patchy Mix in his last fight. He's looking to get another big name, semi-big name at least, in the MMA sphere if you're a hardcore MMA fan, on his record. Muin Gafarov coming into this fight, 20 wins with 6 losses. Wikleks, very extensive record himself, 17 wins, 3 losses, 2 draws. This one's almost a straight pick 'em, boys, but we do have Jacob Wikleks as the -115 favorite with the underdog price tag on. Muin Gafarov coming back at -105.
All right, this is kind of a certified banger, lads. Like, I don't think we're going to get a boring fight like everybody was saying Jacob Wikleks' last fight was against Patchy Mix. You know, just as I blow my own trumpet, I also go the complete other way. And I'm very raw and harsh and my own worst critic. And I bet on Patchy Mix there. I not only bet on him, but I made a video, Hammer of the Week, right? Doesn't mean I put extra money on him. I didn't. We bet him as usual, the 3-unit play, but I did make a video, Hammer of the Week, right? One of my most confident bets, one of the best bets that I want to give out on the week. And although most people scored the fight for Patchy Mix, I didn't. Right, I didn't. I thought that was Jakob Wiklux to get that decision. I thought it was 50-50. I thought Wiklux getting that decision is completely fair, and that is with a man who has a lot of money on Patchy Mix because I bet big stakes, and a man who has an entire reputation online giving people bets, giving people's picks on Patchy Mix. So if I'm saying that Wiklux getting the win is completely fine, it's probably correct. At the end of the day, people score fights differently, it is what it is. But a lot of people scored it for Patchy Mix, but they also said it was boring. Right? I don't think this fight is going to be boring because Gafarov is going to force a fight here. We have two completely different fighters. We have Wiklux, who loves to get in these grappling transitions. He's like a lanky guy, throws his kick, stays at range until the perfect moment to when he can grapple you, jump on a guillotine. He's submission over position a lot of times. He's got a very tricky guard. And one thing that surprised me is that for the most part, he was out grappling Patchy Mix. And I was super surprised at that. I thought Patchy Mix, say what you want to say about him. A lot of people have a lot of negative stuff to say about Patchy Mix because he came into the UFC and did very poorly. A lot of people were hyping him up before. It is what it is. But Patchy Mix is still a very elite grappler for MMA. And to see what Wiklux did to him, basically just competed with him on the level, I was very impressed at that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Wiklux is able to show what happens when he doesn't fight a very good grappler like Patchy Mix. When he fights someone who actually has a propensity for putting his head into trouble, like he did against Said Nurmagomedov within the first 60 seconds, and maybe Wiklux will get a submission here. He's very good with those submissions, and he is a finisher. So I could definitely see that. On the other hand, I've got Muin Gafara as the stronger guy, the tougher guy, someone who has way more power in the hands, and someone who's a better striker overall, better boxer at least. So if Gafarov can dictate where the fight plays out, because he's a much better wrestler, right? And if he can stop the takedowns and just throw heavy lever on the feet with his boxing combinations, I could easily see him not only winning the fight against Jakob, but knocking him out. I could definitely see that because Jakob, I don't think he's great in boxing range. So it's a tough one for me to pick, boys. I'm going to lean with Gafarov just because on paper, he can win this fight if he comes in with good fight IQ and good game plan. But I can't trust him to do that. I don't look at Gafarov and say this guy's got great game plan and elite fight IQ. I could easily see him winning the fight for 8 minutes and then randomly just diving into a guillotine and not being able to get out. So this will not be a bet on Gafarov for me. If anything, I play like a Wiklux submission, a plus 500 or whatever they line out. Hopefully it's pretty good. But overall, yeah, for the pick's sake for the video, as I always say, picks mean absolutely nothing. It only matters what the odds are and how I bet, right? Which is not a pick because I can pick on Gafarov but bet on Wiklux submission. I hope you understand what I'm saying now. I literally just said to you that I picked Gafarov. In the same breath, I also said to you that I might bet on Wiklux submission. Right? So that's opposing my pick, but that's because of the odds. That's because of the thought process. That's because long-term sports betting nature, you have to find an edge over the bookmakers. I won't go too in-depth on theory. That's another video for another day. But for the pick, guys, my official pick is Muin Gafarov. But I might switch that tomorrow. That's a close one. And I need to think more about it and maybe even do some more research and send out my official prediction at the end of the week to my elite zone.
Also, boys, from 2026, every week I'm doing one free bet on my Telegram channel. So you can join the Telegram completely for free. That is free. The link is in the bio for that. Join my Telegram and you will see a free parlay or a free bet coming before the fight day. Make sure you put your notifications on so you get notifications when I release that free bet. The Telegram are going to be the first to see the bet. So the link is in the bio there, completely for free, boys. I also give sports betting advice and even do giveaways in there. So join that if you want the free bet, and let's get on to the next fight. Next up, boys, what a great fight we have here. Said Nurmagomedov versus Jailton Basharat. Crazy that these guys are not even ranked in the top 30, but they're very, very high level fighters, So Said Nurmagomedov coming into this fight a record of 18 wins, 5 losses. Jailton Basharat, on the other hand, 14 wins, 2 losses. In this high level contest, we have almost a pick'em. Jailton Basharat, though, is currently the minus 130 favorite with the underdog price tag on Said Nurmagomedov coming back at plus 110 odds. All right, this is a good one, lads. A very good one. An exciting one. Anytime Said Nurmagomedov steps in the octagon, it's exciting for a round, until he gasses out. Because he does gas out in round 2 of basically every fight he's ever fought. But boy, is he dangerous in that round 1. We saw what he did to Bryce Mitchell in his very last fight. On another day, if he wasn't fighting such a tough guy, that could have been a win for Said Nurmagomedov. Most of his wins come in round 1. Most of his wins come from spinning back kick, ninja choke combos, or at least the spinning back kick. A lot of his knockdowns come from the spinning back kick, spinning shot in general, and then front headlocks aka ninja chokes more specifically, right? So if you can beat that, you kind of can run him over. So the question is, can Javid Basharat avoid the spinning shit, right? And can he avoid the front headlocks? That's really what it comes down to. In my opinion, he can. Javid Basharat is a very good outside striker. So although I think Saeed is a much better outside striker, I think that Javid Basharat footwork and the way he fights, which is not to close distance, is to stay on the outside, like his brother, who we spoke of earlier. I think that it might lead to Saeed being out of range at times and Saeed having some trouble finding his range. You know, like you can't spin kick someone if they're 4 foot away from you, you know. Obviously, the spin kick does cover a lot of ground, but you still need them to be in range to some degree. So I feel like it could be some type of staring contest on the feet where Javid Basharat doesn't want to close range because he knows that Saeed is such a explosive and dangerous kicker, and even, you know, he has some good spinning back elbows and punches as well, especially early. So we could see some type of staring contest and Javid Basharat implementing a wrestling game plan, just like his brother, in my opinion, will do against Gene Matsumoto. I think these guys have been in camp training together, wrestling together. Javid is honestly probably one of the smarter fighters in the division, along with his brother, and I think that he's going to know that to win this fight, he needs to push the wrestling because Saeed Nurmagomedov, even though his surname is Nurmagomedov, he gets extremely tired from wrestling. You know, he isn't a Nurmagomedov like we know the Nurmagomedovs. He's not one of those, right? So I think Javid's going to know that. Javid's going to see him get beat by Bryce Mitchell in his last fight, taken down, grappled, controlled, and he's going to try and do the same, right? So I think round 1 might be a little bit sketchy. Not much is happening. It's a boring striking contest. Saeed does some flashy things, maybe lands something. But I think in round 2 and round 3, Javid's going to start grappling, start grappling a lot, start single leg, body lock, trip. I think Saeed's going to start to get tired. And I think we're going to see Javid take over. Now, I am going to say this. Saeed still does have gas in his, like Saeed gets tired, right? But he has gas. If in round 1, it is a boring striking contest, Saeed is going to basically be completely fresh going into round 2, right? Meaning that maybe he doesn't get tired till round 3 and it might be too late for Javid to win the fight then, if you get what I'm trying to say, right? A lot of the times to make Saeed gas badly, you really need to push him from round 1, like Bryce Mitchell did, like Vinicius Oliveira did. This is kind of the way to beat him. I'm thinking Javid might not do that until round 2. And if he doesn't, it could get sketchy for himself. I still think he's going to be able to get the takedowns needed to win. But I do think it's probably going to be a close fight. I think the fight will go to a decision here. But again, in a lot of these fights late, even the Bryce Mitchell, even the Vinicius Oliveira one, Saeed Nurmagomedov looks ready to quit. It looks like he could be finished. And then obviously all of his wins basically are by finish. So it is risky betting an over in a Saeed Nurmagomedov fight, although, you would have cashed 2 times out now in a row, even though those fights look like they wasn't going to cash. So even if you do bet it and you win, you still don't feel great about it. It's like a sweaty bet. And like I said throughout the show, boys, betting is a interesting game. There's a lot of gray area. And even if you win a bet, sometimes you're not happy with it, And a lot of people will listen to that and go, what are you on about? A winning bet is a winning bet. But no, a winning bet is not a winning bet. A winning bet is a reflection of who you are, how you bet, and what your long-term results will be based on the bet that you had, right? So people think a winning bet is great and they flex a winning bet, but in reality, it's not so much of a flex to people like me who make my full-time income off MMA betting unless it was a legitimately good bet at the line, regardless of whether it won or not. I don't really care because I'm looking at 10 years down the line. I'm not looking at that specific bet, right? Again, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, Plus EV Betting, go and watch some YouTube on it, read some books about it. If it does, then you're going to be profitable moving forward. So just to wrap up the breakdown nice and neatly in a little bow, I think Javid Basharat's got this one. I've seen some footage of him out there, some photos of him out there training with Adriano Moraes and Alejandro Pantoja, 2 elite fighters to train with. Higher fight IQ than Saeed, better wrestling, better grappling, better cardio, and in my opinion, the guy who's going to win this fight. All right,
boys, sorry I had to go a little bit less in-depth on these later fights, but hey, let me know if you liked me going a bit faster through these later fights, or if you prefer me to slow it down a little bit, just be a little bit more comfortable in taking my time and telling you exactly my thought process to a higher degree and telling you more information. Let me know what you like better, because I can make these breakdowns snappier if you want. It's really up to the viewers. I'm at your service in this one. So just let me know if you like those shorter breakdowns at the end or the more in-depth ones at the start. And outside of that, boys, that's it. It's another show. We're done. I'm going to go and get amongst the Sydney city life right now and go and mingle with some of the fighters, some of the camps, some of the media, and just get in and amongst everything now. Peace and love, boys. I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully you cash bets this weekend.